Hey guys, Andy here. I'm here with my Samsung Galaxy A3, the 2016 version. I've been using it, kind of messing around with it for 3 or 4 days. I've used it as my main device for the last 24 hours. Normally I'd use it for longer than that, but actually I've just got such a crazy busy week or two coming up. I figured, I'd rather get the review done. So here we go. I think I've used it enough that I can form opinions on it. The first thing we always talk about is design. I think it's a beautiful design. It's almost like someone took my Note 5 and then shrunk it. The build quality is just fantastic. I mean, it's such a solid phone. It does weigh 132 grams, which for a 4.7 inch screen device, not that it's heavy, but it's not light. But it feels good in the hand. It feels solid. Really, I think really good build quality. So the screen being 4.7 inches, it's almost hard for me to use. I'm so used to the big sort of 5.5 plus devices. Coming down to a 4.7 is kind of odd, but actually at the same time, I think I got used to it quite quickly. And in some ways, it's quite nice. And it does make me wonder if I should have tried the Pixel rather than the Pixel XL, just to see how I got on with that smaller device. Having said that, I like a nice big screen for everything, really, to be honest. So it's got Gorilla Glass for both front and back. So that's protected, hopefully. It's micro USB at the base. I suppose you'd expect that. I mean, it is a year-old device, I should point out. I think it got released last December. The speaker down there at the bottom, it isn't fantastic, but it's enough. You know me, I like to listen to podcasts. I like to actually want to make phone calls. I have it on the speaker as well. And it's enough. It's not a problem. It's in the lower end, low middle when it comes to my test, but it's fine. The 3.5mm headphone jack, obviously. Up the left-hand side is the volume rocker. Up the right-hand side we have the power button and also space for the SIM card and a micro SD card. On the top, I think that's just a noise-cancelling mic at the very top there. The antenna lines. And it just, there is a camera bump, which I'm not a big fan of. But it's not too much problem. And also, I only noticed this recently on my Pixel, but it does it on this as well. Can you hear that? Really bugs me, actually. I don't know what it is that shakes. Someone said it's something to do with the camera. I mean, I also wonder if it might be something to do with the vibrating motor. I don't know. Anyway, shouldn't worry, but it's just something that annoys me. Where do we get to? So I mentioned the micro SD card. So if we move on to the hardware, I suppose. Did I mention the home button? I do like having a physical home button. I miss it a bit from the on the Pixel, but at the same time, the amount of times I pulled this out of my pocket and then I was kind of feeling to turn it on with the fingerprint sensor, which obviously it doesn't have. But if we talk about the hardware, the chipset is an Exynos 7578. Actually, I should point out, if you look it up on GSM Arena, which is where I generally get my specs from, there's 2 different models listed, which Samsung like to do. The Snapdragon, which I think was a 400, maybe a 410, I can't remember now, I didn't write it down, I think is for the US, but pretty much everywhere else gets the Exynos 7578. The processor is a quad-core 1.5 GHz Cortex A53. The GPU in this is a Mali T720 MP2. It's got 16 gig of storage. Do you know what? I didn't write down how much RAM it's got. I'll have to put that in as a little stat along the bottom, because I forgot to check that. I do apologise. In fact, actually, let's load up Geekbench. And I won't need to then put the little stat along the bottom, because I think Geekbench will tell us. I think it was 2 gig of RAM. Well, 1.34, interesting. So I bet it states it's 2 gig. What Geekbench is discovering is 1.34. Anyway, on Geekbench, with those specs, it does only score 2010, roughly, which is pretty low. But at the same time, the device generally, I find, seems to be quite slick and smooth. I don't really have any issues of lag. You can swap about things swap about things fairly quick and easy. Been down the gym today. So yeah, although it scores quite low, I don't think that's particularly a problem, because it's in actual use it seems okay. The screen is amazing. So I do my usual brightness test, and it scored, almost as high as the S7 Edge. It's pretty much the second brightest screen I've ever tested, which is on a device that's kind of a budget device. the screen is quite often the area that they cheap out on. But it is Super AMOLED. It's only 720p, so 1280 by 720. That gives 312 pixels per inch though, which I would suggest generally is fine. The colours nice and vibrant, as you can hopefully see on the video. So obviously I've mentioned there's no fingerprint sensor. Again, you wouldn't necessarily expect that from a budget device. There's also no NFC, so no Android Pay to go with this device. The vibrator, I think I mentioned earlier, it's a really strong vibrating motor. You can hear it quite loudly, actually. It worries me a little bit that if you've got your phone on vibrate in a meeting, actually everyone's going to hear it. Everybody's going to hear it go, brrr, brrr. Can we, I think I can test it by turning, look at that, I'm trying to use a fingerprint sensor. Imagining it's my Note 5. So we turn sound back on. Now I don't know if you could hear that. Let me move a bit nearer to the mic. Maybe I'm exaggerating. It is quite loud. It's certainly very strong. You wouldn't miss it when it's in your pocket. You'll feel that thing vibrating. If we move on to the cameras, the rear facing is a 13 megapixel f1.9 and the front facing is a 5 megapixel f1.9. I'd point out as well, you can quick launch the camera. That's what I love with Samsung devices, by double pressing the home button. The camera, I would say, seems pretty damn good, especially for a budget device. Generally, the colours looked quite good. It struggled on a couple of pictures in bright light. It kind of went a little weird, but generally, really very good. The front-facing camera certainly seemed good enough as well for your your selfies to go on Instagram. Low light performance seemed okay. No real issues. A little grainy, but nothing too bad, as it was with the video. The video footage generally was quite good as well. There's no optical image stabilization on the video, which was very obvious, especially having come from the Pixel. So all around, the camera, especially for a budget device, yeah, I would say that's pretty good. I mean, it's not a strength, I would say. You know, you wouldn't buy this phone because of its camera, but when you're buying a phone in this price range, you should be quite happy with the camera that you get. The software, out of the box, it comes with Android 5.1.1, but almost straight away it updated to Marshmallow, Android 6.0.1. It's like a 1 gig download. Obviously the software is the TouchWiz version of things, but actually I don't particularly have a problem with that. They've toned it down a bit these days, so it's not as, you know, it used to be like bright green. It used to be like almost the Seattle Seahawks colours, if anyone can relate to that. Kind of a bluish with bright green. I thought, oh, it was revolting, but these days actually it's not so offensive. And actually some of the bits that they do, like in the camera app generally is pretty good. The different settings and options that you get, I know we kind of moved on from the camera, but I love that you get video and stills on the same. I think it's got all the voice activation and stuff as well. So yeah, generally the software, I'm sure hopefully by now you all know what Samsung's about, but I would say those that have been scared of TouchWiz or staying away from TouchWiz for many, many years, I wouldn't worry so much, to be honest, now. Also with the apps, that you get a lot of apps built in, especially mine came from O2, so I've got various bits of O2, but actually you can, remove most apps that you don't want. I've already removed a few, to be honest. I'll see if I can quickly show you how simple. I mean, I say remove, you disable them. So let's find. So Excel, look, I've no interest in Excel. That came pre-installed. I just tap disable. So it says it's going to replace it with the Fracture version, but it says good as, so that won't be listed anywhere now in my app drawer. I should mention, when it comes to software, how much space you have. So the device, as I mentioned, has 16 gig of storage. Now I've got 5.5 gig left. I have used, it says, almost 5 gig. The system itself 5.2, I think it said. So I've got 600 meg of photos and videos already. My app's installed, so I've downloaded some music onto the device, photos, I've downloaded podcasts onto the device, Dropbox. Some of them So Word and PowerPoint, look, they came pre-installed. There's not a massive amount you can do with a lot of them. So I should really have double checked before I installed anything to see what was available. But I think you're generally not going to be too bad. So it says there, look, system running 5.2. Let's say I've used even 2 gig of that. That means you're going to have about 7 to 8 gig yourself to do with as you wish, which isn't too bad. We move on to the battery. It's a non-removable, obviously, because it's all sealed in. Li-ion 2300 mAh battery. Now, obviously, I'm used to testing devices that are bigger than this, and they generally come with much bigger batteries. So when you first hear 2300 mAh, you think, oh my god, that's not very big. But actually, it's a small device with a small screen, with a slower processor. It's not going to need as much power. And that kind of showed up in my battery test. It finished its hour-long test with 92% of battery left, which is actually sort of tied for second best with a lot of the other devices. What's possibly just as good a test is I use it at the gym. So I'm using music for a good hour and a quarter, if not an hour and a half. The screen's going on and off as well as I'm kind of recording what sets I've done. So for me, that's the heaviest use that I give it. So I have been off charge. So you can see where I was at the gym. So I woke up 7:30ish. It came off charge. Not doing much for kind of an hour and a bit. Then off I go to the gym. But now it's kind of leveling out again. How much screen on time have I had? An hour and 12 in the 5 hours that the device has been off charge. And that's screen on time. If we look at Amazon Music, what does it say there? Oh, no, I know I was using... Oh, no, I suppose I did use... No, yeah. So I know I've been using that for... It's just 35 minutes. I would have thought it was longer than that. But then I suppose I did use YouTube and stuff when I was cycling. 12 minutes. And Beyond Pod should be somewhere. Oh, it's not even listed. I was listening to some podcasts. So, there we go. 5 hours used thus far. And we're down to 68%. So even on a really heavy day... You're going to get at least 15 hours. That's if I went to the gym 2 more times, killed myself, kept using it. It reckons I've got 34 more hours. 79 hours with ultra power saving mode. So the battery generally is pretty good for the use of the device like this. Onto hackability. I'm not really going to spend much time on this. I couldn't even find it listed on XDA developers, which is a little bit weird. You might find how to unlock it, how to root it, but personally, if that's what you're after, don't go for this device. It doesn't look to be that well supported. So, in conclusion, I do all these different tests with my devices, and I kind of plot them as you've seen the little images we've been going, and then I do one where I kind of find an overall score based on where it ranks against each of the different things that I do. It's only 4 different tests, so and it's really not very scientific, but it gives you a little idea. And it didn't score all that well, mainly because its weakest point being the benchmark. It really doesn't benchmark well compared to other devices that I've had, but I wouldn't let that worry you because it seems quite fluid, as hopefully as you've seen with me using it on camera just now. This other weakness is the speaker, but again, I think I would be okay if I had to use this device for a year. The speaker to me is is actually an important thing, and it's okay. It's sufficient. It will do the job. One thing that's not in my rankings is the camera, and actually that's pretty good. That I would say for someone spending this sort of money, they'd be quite pleased with the camera. The screen is just, as I've said, pretty stunning, really. I think. I mean, feel free to disagree, but I'm really impressed with the screen. And the build quality is other. A lot of the time, if you're spending kind of, 200 and below, you don't expect to have a phone that feels as good as this. I think you could talk people into believing this was a £400 phone based on just handing them it and them feeling the build quality. Then we'll come to the price, because this I think is quite a key thing when it comes to the conclusion. John Lewis have it listed at $199.99. I think that might be a Black Friday £10 off or something like that, because O2 SIM free, it's basically $209.99. But if you do it with refresh, so you go to pay monthly and you choose one of the, I think it's a 300 meg a month option. If you've not done it before, they basically give you a different price that you're paying each month or different price. They separate the price down to what you pay for the phone and what you pay for the airtime. and you would pay £13 a month. £2 of that for 24 months would be the phone, £11 of that would be the airtime. You pay $69.99 up front for the device. So 24 times 2, 48, plus the basically 70, £118 for the actual device. You're free to cancel the airtime whenever you want. So I've not done it just yet, but I'll ring up. It's a kind of a 10-minute I have done it before, 10-minute conversation, and they will cancel the airtime. You just have to make sure you pay off the device. In this case, the £48. So you can get this for £118. That's crazy. That really is. If you like small phones, I mean, not even if you're looking for a budget phone, just if you like small phones, for £118, you really should consider this. Now, I believe the 2017 version is coming, and it may be with us come January, and maybe that's why they're selling these cheap. I'm not sure the £118 goes on past December. So if you're watching it after that, let us know in the comments what price they're at the moment. But the conclusion being, at £118, this is a steal. I think it really is. And I'd be very interested to know your thoughts and comments. I'm almost annoyed I've not got another device of a similar kind of price range that I can kind of compare it and test it to. But I don't know, there you go. That's my thoughts. I'll be really interested to hear yours. Let me know in the comments down below. But for now, my name's Andy. I'll catch you all again soon.